everyone. We're down here in Portland, Oregon yet. Give you a court update today on the procedures that's been going on so far this morning. I'm driving right now, but I've got someone else holding the phone for me as we head back to court. We had to make the best of our lunch break here. We had to run someone to the airport during the lunch hour that's flying back to Las Vegas. That was Jeff Banta. So we got out of court just a teeny bit early for the lunch break, but we're having to get back fast, so we don't have a lot of time to give you a real big detail of what went on the day, but I'll give you as much as I can on the way into court here. How you doing, Dale? Good to see you. So we are now, the defendants have rested as of this morning. We brought in no more witnesses as we had plans on bringing a few more in. We didn't bring any more witnesses in today. The defense decided to rest. The government did bring in 3 additional witnesses. They brought in the FBI agent again, Agent Walker, which again, as we've said in the past, he testified in the last trial, and he also participated and sat in the complete last trial, and has participated and sat in this complete trial. He's also testified in this trial already once before. So he testified a final time in closing, just before closing arguments for the government. And then we had Mr. Chad Cargis. He's the refuge manager. He again testified just before closing arguments for the government. And Linda Beck, another employee there at the refuge, she testified. And both of those, all 3 of those were actually brief, mainly trying to bring forth the sympathy of the jurors of how they were so fearful for their life, and how they had to leave town. Mr. Chad Cartridge, he mentioned that he had to put guns at every entrance of all of his doors throughout his house for his safety, because he was so fearful for his life. And then he even did this before they even took over the refuge. When he heard the Bundys were in town, he had to arm himself really heavily, he testified. And then he put guns even before the second, before the protest at the Safeway on the 2nd, and before they went out there, he was already arming himself up because of the Bundys being in town, he testified. And Linda Beck testified that on the 7th, she left town fearful for her life. Mainly, it came out that she, I hear you, Jamie, good to see you on here. Mainly she testified she was told to leave because Chad Cartridge ordered all the employees to leave town because of their safety. So there was no direct threat to anybody except through Chad Cartridge. Chad Cartridge testified that he had a briefing with law enforcement that there were threats on their life. One of the biggest points today that happened is that the government wanted to bring forth that there was a threat of someone being kidnapped from the employees. Some militia member or some member of this protest had a plan to kidnap one of the workers. And the judge found that was not worthwhile to bring to the jurors, and that she found that there wasn't enough evidence to support that. So that was a great move on the defense team to get that thrown out. So the prosecution was not allowed to bring that to the jurors, which we're thankful for. So that was a big win for us today. After these 3 testimonies, the government said they rested their case also, and they started right into closing arguments. They spent about 90 minutes of this morning in the closing arguments, and Mr. Ethan Knight, the prosecutor, for the government. He gave a pretty outstanding closing arguments. He brought in a lot of exhibits, a lot of videos, a lot of pictures. His whole testimony was just short little speeches in between all of these pictures and exhibits that were been played out through the whole trial. He kind of gave a summary of the trial in about 90 minutes. And just before lunch, he rested his first closing arguments. And I understand that the government's going to have just a few minutes of closing arguments at the very end. The defendants are starting with their closing arguments probably right now as we're speaking. They're I haven't made it back up into the room, but they are starting their closing arguments pretty much as we're speaking. So that kind of summarizes up. We'll have closing arguments of all four defendants hopefully at the day, and the government may finish up with their closing arguments also. They're trying to get it all wrapped up and give the jurors their final instructions of the day and have them go into deliberation as early as tonight or in the morning. I think it's going to be in the morning. I don't see how they're going to get everything done. The judge has told everybody that she is going to hold them a little later today, anticipating on trying to get them into closing arguments. I mean getting them into deliberation yet today. But we'll see how that plays out. It's going to be a long day yet today. It's raining outside here in Portland again, so it's miserable to be outside. Most everybody that's here has been staying up underneath the canopy of the federal court building. I haven't seen nobody over at Patriot Corner today all day, but tomorrow we have plans on tomorrow on setting up a Patriot Corner, rain or shine, while we're waiting on the verdict. And I'll be there all day long. Like I said, rain or shine, we'll have all the signs out, all the flags out, because we will be officially done in court until we get a verdict back. Watching these jurors, this whole trial and the last trial, the parts I've been in, I feel real good about this. I know the defense team they've done everything they possibly can under the circumstance of what's been kept out of the courtroom. The evidence has been denied. So we feel very good about this case, and I don't think it's going to take all week. We may even have a verdict yet tomorrow, Thursday or Friday, but I suspect one back very, very quickly. So that's kind of sums things up. I will have you another update this evening as we finish up with closing arguments. I'm driving up into the parking garage, so I'm having to do this driving, trying to get things done. But we're short on time. So good afternoon. We're finished with court down here in front of the courthouse now in Portland, Oregon. We have concluded the trial, and so we'll wait for a few people to get on here. It's raining down here in Portland. Kind of a cold, miserable day. There is nobody over at Patriot Corner this morning. Most of us spent our morning in the courthouse, or all day actually in the courthouse here. It's been a long day from morning till now. Most of us, hello Gills, how you doing? I've seen Bill Eamon get on here too, and a few other people. Thank you for coming on from Butte, Montana. We got Kathy on here, I see, and Rebecca from Indiana. So it's good to see everybody on here. Kathy, how you doing? We've had a long day down here, a tiring day. Everyone's exhausted. We pretty much had the courtroom full. And hi, Robin. The courtroom was full in room floor 9 and floor 13. We had a packed courthouse today. We started out this morning with the defense team. They rested. They brought no more witnesses forth. We had several witnesses we wanted to bring forth, but as we know, the last few days the judge and the prosecutors have objected to most of our witnesses, where that we lost somewhere around 25 witnesses in the last couple of days that we wanted to testify. So, but anyway, we rested this morning, and the government brought on the first closing arguments. They took about 90 minutes. In those 90 minutes, they recapped the whole case again. They brought in tons of exhibits and videos, pictures that they had throughout the trial. This is something they did not do in the first part, the first trial we had back last year. But they were struggling a little harder this time than they did last time, trying to convince the jurors that these men committed these crimes. We brought the government brought on 3 witnesses, as I mentioned at lunch. They brought in Chad Cardis, they brought in Linda Beck, and again they brought in Agent Walker. All 3 of these witnesses testified on the behalf of the government for the closing arguments, and all 3 of these witnesses had testified previously. They mainly were, these 3 witnesses were just trying to bring in the sympathy from the jurors, how scared they were, how they was not able to work, how they had to leave town, how Mr. Chad Cardis, how he had guns placed at each and every door through the whole house, which he normally kept these guns in his safe. And he even said he started this protecting his house or fortifying his house back even in December before January 2nd. So he was scared of these protesters before they even took over the refuge or protested out at the refuge. And so that was an interesting fact, that it wasn't just the refuge takeover that made him scared. He was already scared of them trying to protest there for the Hammonds all along. That was a big point. Chad Cardis, I don't know if he had anything to do with the Hammonds going to jail, myself personally, but it seems like there's some truth in that, as a defense team in both trials have pointed out, that the refuge and the workers there were involved in having the Hammonds locked up all along. So that was an interesting fact. Right at lunch, the government rested with their first partial part of the closing arguments. We had a very short, compact lunch break, and we started right into closing arguments this afternoon for the 4 defendants. Jason Patrick's attorney, Mr. Clamez, he started out with closing arguments for the defendants. All 4 of these defendants did awesome today, presenting their clients, presenting this case, showing that there was no, the crime that they're being charged with is not true and accurate. How these people, each one of these defendants, came to protect the Hammonds, came to stand in their place. The Hammonds and Mr. Finicum, Lavoy Finicum's name was mentioned several times throughout the closing arguments here this afternoon. I'll glance at some of my notes here. I know that Jason Patrick's attorney, he brought up a point that about protesters. He said, what do we want? We want justice. When do we want it? We want it now. This is a saying that we have been saying all summer. And he conversed this over to the jurors, saying, what do we want? We want justice. What do we want? When do we want it? We want it now. And he had that part of his closing arguments, and it made such an impression, I think, on the jurors that that's all we have been wanting is justice. When do we want it? We want it now. And we've been saying this in Nevada. We've been saying this in Oregon this last 13 months. So another thing that got brought out today, it says, who were the other informants there? That this got brought out in closing arguments. Who were the other informants? Why weren't they here to testify? Why has the government continued to hide these additional informants that were protesting there with these other protesters for the Hammonds? Were they close people, possibly like Mark McConnell? We want to know who they are. It says, who are they? We don't still know to this day. Were there more than the government actually, that they actually disclosed to us? how many more are they than just 9 or 15? And it's a lot of questions that we should have had answered in this case that might have brought a more clearer picture to the jurors, because we have a right to our accuser, and the accuser in this case has been no one but the government. So the plaintiff, who is the plaintiff? This question's been asked way back. Ammon Bundy asked this question way back during the refuge time and before even. Who is the plaintiff? The plaintiff we have here and our witnesses against these people have been informants, government agents, FBI. That's the biggest picture of this whole case. All the evidence that has been brought forth here, the testimonies have been brought by certain informants that even testified, I should say, on the defense side in both cases here. We got brought up again in closing arguments how the Hammonds went to jail, and it was clearly brought up. They went to jail for, Mr. Hammond went to jail for 3 months. His son went to jail for 1 year and 1 day. After they went home, they were, it was appealed by the prosecutors, and these prosecutors, we should say, was brought up, they were just doing their job as any government person, police officer, or anything. How can we hold these prosecutors accountable for something they were just doing their job doing? They re-prosecuted the Hammonds again, or actually didn't re-prosecute them, but they appealed the case, said it wasn't enough time. These prosecutors did not have to do that. The time these men served in jail the first time was sufficient enough, but the prosecutors were not happy with that outcome. So they appealed it, brought them back into court, had them resentenced to serve a minimum of 5 years in prison, which the Hammonds at this point are still in prison in California for this said crime. We got brought up again today in closing arguments, the Navy SEALs. We would like to know more information about these Navy SEALs. One lawyer brought up to the jurors. We know that one name got brought up yesterday of Danny Williams. He was one of the supposed Navy SEALs that he was acting as an informant, calling the FBI, informing and telling them, and actually giving the FBI orders. That was a big point there. He called the FBI up, gave them orders, told them to stand down, told them not to fly the helicopter that the FBI keeps claiming that they never had out there, because there's very little pictures of this helicopter, and the government keeps claiming that they did not have a helicopter out there, but they have no witnesses to back that up. We have witnesses of the defense team that say there was, that have seen that helicopter. At least 2 of our witnesses testified that this helicopter existed. So this Danny Williams, he made a phone call that was recorded to the FBI telling them to stand down, to take that helicopter, get it away, because they were scaring some of the protesters out there after Lavoy Fiddicum had been shot and murdered. It also was mentioned that the media, how the media lied and the government set the narrative and portrayed these people so dangerous that that's what scared the refuge workers. Not one single threat came actually from any of the protesters to any of these people. The jurors got to hear this today in closing arguments, that that the only places that these refuge workers heard that they could not come to work, for one, that there was a threat to their lives, was all from the media and other government employees that were telling them, don't go to work, leave state, go hide somewhere. It never came from any worker at all. It said, one of the defense lawyers, he said, the government knew everything that was going on out there at the refuge. He said there wasn't a squirrel that sneezed in them 41 days at the refuge that the FBI did not know about. And I'm going to say that again. He said there was not even a squirrel that sneezed in the 41 days on the refuge that the FBI didn't know about. They had overwhelmingly pictures, videos, information that that was out there that they had here. The government went over and above their means to hide even the evidence the government had. They didn't even want these things played to the jurors, saying that was cumulative under Rule 403, that the jurors should not be exposed to this much evidence. It's overwhelming that they shouldn't have to listen to it. And this evidence, the defense team has been wanting to play for the last 13 days to the jurors, and so much of this has been kept out of the views of the jurors. Getting that said, we finished today. The case is officially in the hands of the jurors as of right now. The jurors went back into the deliberation room to get set up and get procedures. We will be back here tomorrow morning and the jurors will be back here, and they're going to start deliberating tomorrow morning about 9 o'clock. And the case is officially in their hands. So I don't think it's going to take very long. We've got some good jurors in here. We've got some good Americans that have seen past the truth of the government, seen how this government overreach, this tyranny of government, how they've been treating the people, has been on trial. The Constitution's been on trial here, same as in Nevada. I seen a message just a moment ago about Nevada. I know that they did not have court today. They will be back in court tomorrow. Tomorrow makes day 14 for them. Today was 13 days in court here, and and it was 13 days for them over there. So we're tied in the days of court we have spent now in Nevada and here. And Nevada is still in government witnesses. It just drag it on and on and on over there. So keep them in your prayers over there. The court's going good, the way I understand. It's very hard and stressful for everyone over there. Everybody's in jail. All the defendants over there are in jail. They're fighting literally for their life over there. Most of them have been in jail for over a year. And so continue your prayers there. Tomorrow I will be outside here on Patriot Corner for the next day or 2, 3 days, whatever it takes for us to get a verdict. So I will have you some hopefully way better updates on Nevada the next few days and tell you what's going on over there. One of the biggest things that's happening tomorrow, right here, we are starting the second phase of this trial without the jury. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we have all the defendants back in here and their lawyers starting the misdemeanor part of the charges. This is absurd. Darryl Thorne stood up today after the jurors walked up, and he demanded his God-given rights, his birthrights to a jury again. And the judge says she wasn't going to hear no part of it. She sat down, Darryl. I've already ruled on this. You're not getting a jury trial. You're getting a trial on these additional charges by a bench trial only. So this trial technically is not over. We've got the jurors going to deliberate the fate of these 4 men starting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And starting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, they're being retried again on the same exact charges, at least the same incident that occurred back there in January of 2016, all over again, just under different names of charges. It's absurd that this kind of thing can happen here in America. We have a constitutional right under the 6th Amendment, to have a jury trial. And these men have sat here for 13 days in court already with the jury, and now they're going back in again for the second phase of the trial, and Judge Brown, that has sat on both cases, is presiding over them again. We're letting this kind of stuff happen because we're not standing up. Judge Brown is just doing her job just like all the other government officials. These prosecutors are just doing their job just like all the other police and all the other prosecutors. If they didn't, they would get fired. That's the kind of thing we need to vote out. I haven't never took jury duty that serious in the past in other cases that I've seen. But from now on, I think being on the jury on a jury trial, sitting there as a juror, is just as important, if not more, than voting. The jurors have a say in here. These jurors can stop this corruption. they can look through the evidence and see that this case is wrong and that these men should be found not guilty. I know that God's in control here, and I know that we are going to get another not guilty here. We got Americans up here that are seeing other Americans abused, just like Americans seeing that the Hammonds were abused. The Hammonds had people come from all over the world, all over the country, especially all over the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast, all the way from out in Massachusetts, from California, from Texas. There's people that were locked up from all over the country for supporting the Hammonds. 26 guys, and maybe even 27 that were locked up for supporting the Hammonds. We've got 12 jurors up here. They're Americans. That's their job to stop this government corruption and tyranny right now too. And I cannot believe that these jurors have not seen the truth and seen what was trying to be hid in this courtroom. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. We're not looking forward to the bench trial part of this, but it does officially start tomorrow. And I will be back down here reporting to you as things happening here on the ground. And as soon as we know we're going to get a verdict, I will be out here. We do not know when it's going to be. It could be, we've got 15 minutes to get back into the courtroom once that verdict is being told. So it could be tomorrow, as early as tomorrow. It could be Thursday or Friday. We will be here the next 3 days for sure. So behind me, we've got a handful of people still down here waiting on me. And again, like I said, we had the courtroom packed out, the 9th floor and the 13th floor. So we had a good day. We didn't have anybody standing at Patriot Corner, but tomorrow we will be over there occupying Patriot Corner. We'll have all of our signs out while the next 4 guys are up here on the bench trial before Judge Brown. That's all the news I've got for you today. I do appreciate everybody out there. Keep in touch. I will have more live streams for sure tomorrow. And thank you again, and God bless.